Mossberg MC2C with some SAR USA 124 grain 9mm. We've got the Hollow Sun EPS on the top. Now this feels as thin or thinner than the Hellcat Pro. We've heard that it's a very good shooting gun. So let's try it out.
In 2020, Mossberg added to their pistol line with the MC2C, and just recently, they've got a version with the optics cut.
And that kind of brings this into a full platform gun. Their first reiteration into the pistol market was a single stack, taking Glock mags of all things, to be surprised. But now they've got kind of that thin, micro compact, but not micro compact thing going on, kind of like Springfield has with the Hellcat Pro. It's that kind of middle ground.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. They definitely push into that middle ground. So if you look at the overall length, it's almost identical to a 19 in terms of length. It is definitely thinner, but just overall profile and size, it's definitely in that range. So it is a little bit bigger than, like a lot of the micro compacts, and then you've got that Hellcat Pro, which is kind of bridging that gap, and this is, I think it's right there in with it. I mean, for this size gun, it's great. It obviously is gonna have a little bit more recoil, but no, the trigger's excellent, honestly. It is, it's a Glock-esque trigger in a lot of ways. It has that same feel. So because I shoot a lot of them, the reset and everything feels very, very natural. No, I mean
The brake feels better, I think, because of the flat trigger. It feels smooth.
Yeah, it does. It's a very, very, very smooth. It's very predictable to get back on target with this gun. It's got a little bit more recoil just because of its size and its lighter weight. I mean, and that makes sense. That's that trade-off that you always have, right? But no, I mean, and the optics great. Everything, I really like this thing. At first glance, it seems like they really went with kind of design over function a little bit. But when we were shooting it, they've got grip and texture all in the right places. That being said, we are in the desert Southwest, so it's not like your hands get very sweaty. As we were kind of handling it back in the office and that kind of thing, I did notice that that lack of grip texture in some of the areas, I think it might be a little bit of an issue. So maybe if you're back east or you're in a high humidity area, I'd probably try it out.
The thing that gets me is the texturing. You feel like there's a lack of.
I was gonna say exactly the same thing.
When you hold it, but when you shoot it, you don't feel it.
Right.
You don't feel like you don't have, it's not trying to rip out of your hand.
I noticed that too. Like when you look at it in photos, or you're, at a trade show or something like that, and you see the gun and you handle the gun without firing it, it looks like that there's not as much grip texture, because there's not, right? You've got nothing here, you've got, nothing up here. To your point, it's in all the right places. And so, in actually shooting the gun, at no point was I having to kind of readjust grip and do all that. Yeah. I'll say for Mossberg, in a way, it was kind of a bold move, but they did it right and it works.
The other thing that I really like about it is the front and rear cocking serrations. The front is a little far forward.
Yeah.
But the rear is in the perfect slot, and they're really deep.
No, I totally agree. And I think that, like you mentioned, I think that the front ones are a little bit far forward, but they work very well. The rear ones are great, and the fact that they are, that panel is a lot longer than you see on a lot of pistols. And so to be able to get a purchase on that is very, very easy.
Now, the one thing I really do like, moving up on the slide is the optics cut. And this one seems to sit lower than all the other ones that we've tested out, to the point where I've got good co-witness on my sights.
I agree, and having it set that low, you don't have to necessarily do that third, lower third co-witness. It's a straight co-witness. It works out great for that. Speaking of that, in terms of footprint, it's the Shield Arms RMSC. So when you're looking for optics to see what's compatible, it's a pretty easy setup.
It is sporting a flat face trigger with an integrated safety blade in it. I felt like the trigger was very smooth. It was easy to get quick follow-up shots. You felt like you had a little bit different experience with it.
Yeah, so if you actually break it down and you look at kind of the design of it, it is very similar to what you'll see in a lot of Glocks, and you get a lot of that same feel, right? Well, it's got a really crisp and short reset, and the break is really nice. The way it comes stock is comparable to some of the other pistols that I've actually worked on and had to do some work on. So I definitely give it credit for that. That being said, the trigger pull does seem a little bit heavy. It's not bad, but comparing it to some other ones, again, there's a little bit of give and take where you'll find some which maybe have a longer reset, where this one has a very, very short reset and a crisp break. But that pull to that break seemed a little bit long, a little bit gritty. But again, I think some of that's just kind of break in, and also it's a new gun, And I think with getting some more rounds through it, I think that kind of polishes itself out.
And I do want to mention, like, the break is exactly at 90, so it's
Yes,
a very good break. Now, you mentioned designs, and we would look at the internals, but the big design cue that I noticed is on the external side. The front of the slide looks really like the old Ruger SR series, which is a well-proven, great design series of pistols. I think Mossberg did a really good job of combining kind of the best of a few different models to make it into something that people really want, because it's got that really curved front slide. So when you reholster, it just slides right in. So before we go any further and talk about one of the coolest parts about this gun, let's throw it over to specs.
One of the great features of this is actually the breakdown. And unfortunately, guys, we can't show that on YouTube. They kind of frown upon those things. But what we'll do is talk about it this way. If you guys have ever taken the slide off a Glock, one of the good things, bad things, is the fact that you've actually got to pull the trigger, to get the slide off. And so it is. There is, again, you should always know that, you should check your gun, make sure it's clear. It's not hard to find instances where people swear bare that their gun was not loaded, right? So what they actually did on the Mossberg was a pretty neat design. You'll notice that basically what you do is the backplate actually, there's a little detent in there, and you can push that, and the striker spring actually kind of holds that in place. And so what you do is you just lock the slide back, and then you just push the backplate off and pull the striker out, and then the slide comes right off. And again, I think it's a nice design. It's a inherently safer design. So I appreciate what they did there.
And I really like the way they did it, because if you are a first-time gun owner, first-time gun buyer, and you may not feel comfortable pulling the trigger, or maybe, you're not used to it, you've got that, this is a great way to do that. I mean, the little detent's really easy. You get the whole striker assembly out. And the other nice thing about this is it's easy to take this out. I know on Glocks, it's really not that hard. You got to do some pushing, pulling, and popping off. But now I can look at my striker. I can see, okay, is my firing pin broken? Is, everything supposed to be, are my cups still okay? And now I can also, during cleaning, clean out that firing pin channel, because stuff does get in there over time. And a lot of us forget that that's a part of the gun that moves more often than not.
Exactly.
It moves every time. So you got to get in there and get that carbon build out. So I really do appreciate Mossberg for thinking outside of the box when it comes to this, especially with safety in mind. Now, out on the range, the Mossberg performed like we thought it was going to. Very quick follow-up shots, very low recoil, easy to get back on target. I really do like the way this gun shoots, especially with that flat face trigger.
I totally agree. And having the size difference between this and things like the Hellcat Pro, it is a little bit longer, and because you've basically got sort of the overall footprint aside from the width of it, is basically a G19. It is. You have a lower felt recoil, which I think is good. It's an easy gun to shoot. Some of the micro compacts and some of those mid-size, if you will, they are, inherently, it's gonna be a snappier gun, The fact that this is just a little bit bigger, it mitigates a lot of that. However, in terms of size for carry, it's slim form factor. It makes it fit in all the right ways.
Right, yeah. And you did mention snappy. It wasn't that it felt snappy, but if you look at some of the footage and things like that, it kind of looks a little snappy, but it's not. And I don't know what to attest that to, if it's the grip texture or just the recoil spring and everything combined together that makes it not feel as snappy as it may look. You know, overall, my impression of this is a very well-built, overbuilt gun.
Like we mentioned, you know, the fact that Mossberg is really branched out, you know, from really their you know, shotgun heritage and pushed hard into this pistol market. They've done an amazing job, and this is a really, really solid entry in that. So when you look at things like the slide serrations, you can tell that it was designed and engineered by somebody who really understood, you know, the challenges that can kind of come with EDC.
Right, and they've put the dimensional changes, like we mentioned, the way it breaks down, that also saves having to have a piece in the slide. So now I'm able to shrink it in the right places, get that grip thin. The engineering behind it is really well thought out. Now, the version we have, and the thing everybody's been asking of this is, what is price, right? The version we have is the optics cut with the True Glow tritium night sights. So these are True Glow tritium night sights, come from the factory, installed on the gun. Mm-hmm. And to mention that, if you were like to upgrade your standard MC2C, they are SIG number 8 sights. So for those of you who are interested in that. So the price on this model here is $449 for this, okay? If you get it without the night sights, you're looking at $378. Mm-hmm. If you get it without the optics cut and without the night sights, you're looking at $315. So we've got 3 price points there.
Right.
Right? So if you were to say at $449 with everything on here, what's your thought of being a buyer at that price point?
This market is very competitive. It's growing very quickly, and there's a lot of companies really bringing a lot to the table, you know, in this realm. That being said, the MC2C is definitely a solid contender, and we've been talking about it a lot. You know, would I take this over some of the other ones? And I think really what it comes down to, when you really compare just like features and you're comparing dimensions and things like that, reliability, it's solid. I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. We shot a ton of different ammo through it. We shot SAR 124 grain, we shot some PMC, we shot some MagTech. I believe there was some DRZ in there as well. And again, we had no malfunctions in any way whatsoever. So in terms of reliability and dependability, I don't have any questions at all. I think really what it comes down to is personal preference. You know, when we compare this to other guns in this market, you know, you'll find things like the overall grip profile on this is a little bit more rounded. You know, if you compare it to like some of the SIGs and that kind of thing, a lot of times they're sort of thinner in this sort of front to back dimension, where this is a little bit wider. I personally prefer that, you know. Would I like to see a little bit more grip texture on it? Possibly, but again, it really wasn't an issue. So I think that at this point, and it's a good thing, we're really kind of digging down into like kind of the small little minutia of it, you know, because it's nice that there's so many good options out there.
Well, not only that, but I can see where the place is on this. And we have our person who's behind the camera often, you don't get to see her. She really likes this gun. And she's a first-time gun buyer. Mm-hmm. And that's where I see where this kind of falls into place as a great option for somebody who who's looking for their first concealed carry or home defense gun, because first off, it feels great in the hand. Mm-hmm. That extra width, and for anybody who's held one of those micro compacts, it's very thin this way. This has got, it feels like it fills your hand. It's got the little bit of extra width, but in kind, it's thinner. So it doesn't feel like it's overly thick, overly thin. It's just right in the hand. At the price point it's at for the $449, I would say it's a great, solid option if I was looking for a first-time gun. Like, this would be a great first-time EDC gun, first-time, you know, that. And even if you have a bunch of guns, I don't see this not being a great carry option. It's a very good gun that holds up and doesn't, the grip texture and everything like that, it just feels really good when you go to shoot it.
I mean, let's just look at the trigger alone, right? The fact of the matter is what you get stock is on par with what you have to put in aftermarket to a Glock. You know, you're looking at, you know, lighter disconnects. You're looking at doing some polishing and a flat face trigger and that kind of thing. And this just cuts to the chase and already has it, you know, and they're doing it at a price point that's incredibly competitive. But to your point, I appreciate the fact that they're listening to their customers, right? That's there because you do. You still have a lot of people who require that, you know, on their gun. We can have a whole other discussion about whether that's a good idea or not, right? Comment away, right? But the fact of the matter is, like you said, you know, the fact that you have a version with or without night sights or with or without an optics cut, you know, I mean, we see people all the time who are like, cool, I don't need an optics cut, you know, where other people, you know, are upset if it doesn't come standard that way. So the fact that they do have a number of different options available really shows that they're listening to their customers.
With the 14+1 mag and the 16 round mag that comes with it, you don't feel undergunned.
100%.
So, and all the other features that you'll see in the specs, like the DLC coding and things like that. So before we go any further, let's wrap this up because we're going around here. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We want to thank you for watching. Hit the little bell for notification and have a great rest of your day.